What is up, guys, and welcome to the video. So today I'm going to be covering the arcane mage changes in Shadowlands. I'm just going to be covering arcane specifically because that's what I know, that's what I'm known for, and that's kind of what I'm looking for most to changing, I guess, here. First off, I just want to throw this out there. A lot of videos right now are focusing on like the negative side of arcane mages in general. Like their mobility has obviously been axed pretty hard. But guys, it's not the end of the world. I think judging an arcane mage at level 50, not max level right now, is kind of a little biased. Like I feel like once it's level 60, once you have all your abilities and little bonuses you're going to be getting along the next 10 levels, is really going to round the class out and make it perfectly fine. Like I know a lot of people that are complaining about arcane mage right now are going to be probably the ones that play it on the top tier level, which it might be. At that level it's might be a little bit I don't know what the word for it is, not incompetent, but it's going to feel really bad. But I think for 98% of the other people that are playing it, it's going to be perfectly fine. If you're willing to put in the time to learn to play the class to a decent degree, you're going to be fine at it. But let's just kind of go over the abilities, all the stuff that it's gaining back. And I want to try and keep the complaining to a minimum, just because I really hate those videos so much. And if I don't like something, I'll cover it. I'll cover why, but I'm not going to go on a rant about it. And hopefully this will work out. Every time I cover one of these abilities, I go on a rant about it being too good or how much I'm looking forward to it. So I'll try and keep it a little bit shorter here. But baseline abilities we're getting back. Arcane Explosion. Obviously that's not really going to affect us much as Arcane, but I feel like it's a really nice spell to have for Fire and Frost. Pretty much it's going to be a nice little filler spell, just something extra for them to cast. This way they don't have to cast a Blizzard or a Flame Strike to get somebody out of stealth, but just a nice spell to kind of round out the spec. Fire Blast and Frostbolt, those are going to be... It'll make Arcane feel a little less locked out when you get kicked. To not have your entire bar go red, just to have something, even if it doesn't mean, that you're going to be blowing somebody up with it. It's a nice little tool, and, we can't really complain about that. If we get some more stuff in our toolkit, that's really going to round out Arcane Mage a little bit. But try not to focus too much on the numbers right now as they stand, because right now, guys, numbers tuning is the easiest thing in the world to fix. If Blizzard feels like Fire Blast or Frostbolt aren't really doing that much damage, that's going to be the easiest thing for them to fix if they notice that it's a little bit too low. But it's more of a filler spell, guys. Don't expect it to be part of your DPS rotation, but it's there if you need it, and that's kind of what they're going for with a lot of these new abilities they're throwing back in. Mirror images, this is going to be really nice. I loved playing with this. Even when it was a talent, I would pick it up once in a while, just for the nostalgia feel, or it's in general a fun ability. If you're in open world, it's pretty much another DPS cooldown, which is always fun to have, because these mirror images clones can actually hit pretty hard if they just build up over time in the battleground. If you're just focusing on somebody or just 1v1 them, these mirror images are going to hit their enemy pretty hard and just wear them down. So it's basically another DPS cooldown. In arena, it might not be the most viable thing. Against like healer DPS, I'll just line of sight it, wait it out, and call it a day. But it's still a fun ability just for the any day casual mage for dueling or battlegrounds or what have you. Fire Ward and Frost Ward, these are definitely really specific, obviously flavor spells, but honestly I feel like they're going to be used for not their general purpose, but actually more of a magic buff. So when you pop your arcane power, or if you have any other magic buffs on you can, go behind the pillar, pop Fire Ward or Frost Ward, and just, get you that extra magical protection for somebody that's going to try and spam purge on your arcane power. I see that's going to be like 80 to 90% of the use. Once in a while, if you might face another mage, which on like live today, that doesn't even happen that often. It'll be handy, but I feel like the main use of this is definitely going to be just magic dispel coverage. Let's kind of work our way down here. Alter time. So there's a lot of controversy going on about this, or I guess people were disappointed. When they saw this, people were expecting the Mystic Pandaria version of Alter Time to come back. They were expecting it to be the OP, DPS cooldown that it used to be. Honestly, I still remember Ian saying that they wanted to bring back Alter Time in that one interview a while ago, and when he said that, I was, optimistic if it would be the Mystic Pandaria version, but honestly, I felt like it was going to be the Warlords Draenor version because the Mystic Pandaria one was just a really overpowered defensive cooldown, and while it did have kind of a skill ceiling to it, I feel like it wasn't. I don't know, to give mages another DPS cooldown, I feel like it would be a bit overkill. And it's nice to kind of have it as a defensive. I'm perfectly fine with that. I love this version. When it was out in Warlords Draenor, I still had a ton of fun with it. It's really handy for duels. If you're out dueling a rogue or a warrior or something like that, you basically have a 10-second, immunity to them unless they countered it, which countering it was possible. It's like you pop it against a warrior off the bat, he'll just fear you for the entire duration, or just root you in place, not even have to worry about it. So it's not like it was overpowered, but it's definitely strong when in the right hands. And that's kind of why I like it about it, because with the old Alter Time, it's basically an unavoidable, magic or unavoidable DPS cooldown. There really wasn't much to do to counterplay. Like it was a magic buff, but you couldn't hardly dispel it because most of the time when they pop Alter Time, it was up for like a second and a half before they'd reset it and get all their buffs and their cooldowns and all that stuff back. So there wasn't much counterplay to it. I feel like it was just more of a, hey, I'm here. If you're not gonna preemptively pop a wall or anything, you're gonna take a big hit, and like it would definitely set really good players apart. Like you'd have to be really good on reaction times, not be mid globals to basically counter this thing. And it was just an OP offensive buff. As fun as it was, and it sure as hell was fun, I'm still glad that they brought back, this version of it. I'm not upset that it's not the Mystic Pandaria overpowered DPS cooldown, but rather the Warlords Draenor defensive. I don't want to cover too much more time on this. Like I could go on for days about this thing, but we'll just kind of move on. But that's my opinion on it. I'm definitely happy about it being back. And I feel like this is going to make up for some of the mobility nerfs. That's why I feel like right now, as bad as displacement being gone, Alter Time is almost going to be like the new displacement, if you really want it to be. But that's my opinion. I'll move on. I'm starting to rant. I'm trying not to. Arcane Intellect. They got a slight, nerf, down from 10% intellect buff to 5%. It's not the end of the world, guys. I don't think anyone's really complaining about this to begin with, but just in case they were, like I said, numbers or damage amount isn't the thing that I'm worried about right now. The Shadowlands Alpha, that stuff can easily be tuned, and I'm not worried about a 5% intellect nerf to ability. That's it's just there. So I already covered Fire Blast and all these abilities. Next thing, oh yeah, that's right. We got a couple new talents. Couple new talent changes. So Focus Magic, actually I want to see if I can find the talent tree. There we go. Focus Magic is the new talent that pretty much replaced Mirror Images. It's going to be on the same tier as Rune of Power and Incanter's Flow here. It's something different. I don't think it's going to be baseline go-to. I think Incanter's Flow is still going to be, kind of the commonplace one that everybody's going to. Rune of Power is going to be the top one for PvE generally, but Focus Magic, it'll be interesting to see. It's one of those talents that's going to fill a very specific role if you're playing with a certain class where crit is amazing for it, and say you're stacking crit, which I don't know, maybe that'll change in Shadowlands. Maybe crit will be a really good trade for you to go for. I'm not generally seeing it. It probably won't be a viable talent or like top viable, but it's still gonna be something fun to play with. Not gonna be game changer, but it's still nice to see it come back. Pretty much from how it was way back in the day when it was a talent on the old school talent trees. But I'm glad to see it there, something new, But like I said, I'm ranting. I'm going on over and over about the same thing, but I'll try and move on here. So Enlightenment is the other new talent down here, and it's the Azurite trait. I know I'm gonna butcher this name, Equipoise, I think, but it's basically putting that Azurite trait into a talent, and I really like this version of it because it's not just increasing your arcane blast damage, but increasing all damage you do by 8% as long as you're above that 70% mana threshold. And the other thing, I mean, so the second half of it says your mana regen while below 70% is increased by 20%. That's going to be really nice, guys. Like, I'm waiting to see how mana regen is in Shadowlands or how it scales with mastery or just baseline, but that's going to be a really strong ability, guys. It's just part of Arcane Mage. It's stacking up those percentages, giving you a little bit more damage, and I really think this is going to add a lot more to the potential one-shots. Which nowadays it almost seems like with this alpha build, that's what Blizzard's going for, is nerfing the mobility of Arcane but making it hit a lot harder, rather than having it be a ninja from Naruto flashing around, just poking it with little needles and daggers, just kind of wearing you down. So I'm perfectly fine with this. It's a nice ability, probably going to be the go-to. I'm probably going to go with it 80% of the time. Reverberate unchanged. I've gone with that once in a blue moon in PvP when I've tried it out against DKs in arena if I just want to try and basically DPS or wear them down harder than they're wearing me down, but hardly ever went with that in PvP. And Nether Tempest is still going to be pretty much the same. It's just going to be more of a utility spell if you need to dot to keep something out of stealth, basically against rogues and feral druids. Or even, I guess, Resto Druids if we want to throw it on them, but they can just dispel it. But yeah, I like the ability. Nice little damage buff. Pretty much, encapsulating what I liked about Arcane Mage. Just going for the biggest damage instead of blinking around all the place and, going for that one-shot dream. Pretty much all the other talents haven't changed except for amplification here. It got a slight buff, so when clear casting Arcane Missiles fires an additional 2 missiles instead of 1. That's going to be really nice. That's making missiles that much stronger. It's one of those things where it's really going to add to the burst. I know a lot of people went with Rule of Threes too, just for mana management, but honestly, I feel like with Enlightened being the way that it is, we might not even need Rule of Threes to basically sustain our mana to a certain point. So Enlightenment combined with amplification might be just good enough for basically conserving your mana, making it last that minute and a half between evocates. So I really like this change. This combo could be kind of the new baseline, but definitely something I wanted to try out for a while and just see how it goes. Along with throwing in maybe the Rune of Power once in a while. So another thing, we'll cover Covenant abilities in a second, but Ring of Frost, actually, I almost forgot. It got a slight change, got a slight buff. So the old one, obviously, it still places the Ring of Frost down on the ground, freezes people in it for the full duration. But now when the freeze ends, they're basically slowed by 65% for 4 seconds. That's going to make things really nice. Honestly, with the direction that Mage is looking without displacement and you only have 1 blink, I feel like control like this might become more baseline. So maybe Chrono Shift might not be a thing as much anymore, and people are going to go for double Novas or single Nova with Ring of Frost just to set up your basically hard hitting casts. You're not going to be kiting all over the place anymore, so maybe Ring of Frost is going to be the new baseline. Just kind of something to go with to control your enemies so that you can set up your damage and just chunk them down. Either that or maybe even double Nova might see it's time in the limelight here just against duels. Maybe against a Windwalker Monk or something, they got that sprint to basically get your Nova, and maybe you got that second Nova just saved just for that, so you can basically chunk people down because you're not going to be running all over the place, guys. So the more control the better. So I definitely like this change. And obviously Shimmer got the nerf, got the axe. It got it cut in half. It's 1 charge now. It's still something I see people play with in arenas because it's basically needed to land a poly without another class to set it up for you. So it still might be a thing, but it's definitely gonna be really annoying, guys. No doubt about it, but we'll see how it plays out. Things can still change. Maybe they'll bring it back to 2 charges, or maybe they'll lower the cooldown of Shimmer to like 12 seconds, or something like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there right now, but give it time. If you're really unhappy about the Shimmer change that much, there's still hope for you. That's basically what I'm saying. But we'll see where it goes from there. So we got Covenant abilities. I really don't know too much about like what's going on with Covenants. I still haven't looked into that. I should probably click on that Covenant overview guide. But I've read through the abilities. Two of them there's 2 of them I'm going to dismiss right away, and 2 of them I'm going to see as kind of the more viable ones. So Deathborn, this is one I really don't see people playing that often. It's a 3-minute cooldown that basically gives your abilities a 10% damage buff while also cleaving a second target. So if you want your arcane blast to hit 2 nearby enemies, basically becoming like your arcane barrage, go for it. It's not something I'm going to be crazy about trying, so I'm not even going to bother with it, but that's really all it does. Just change your arcane blast into your arcane barrage kind of cleave ability. Shifting power, this one I was kind of dismissing just because I don't completely understand it. Like, I'll just read the text and let you kind of decide. But draw from the ground beneath you for 6 seconds, dealing 60% of spell power nature damage every 2 seconds to nearby enemies. So basically sounds like a cleave, like big whoop, but cleave in PvP. We're not trying to cleave down, but the second, I don't understand the second part. Maybe you guys can fill me in on that, but it says while challenging, your mage ability cooldowns are reduced by X amount of seconds every 2 seconds. Like, I don't know what that 3000/1000 exactly means for, numbers. I don't know. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. It's got my interest a little bit, but even if, say there were to be every 2 seconds it take down your cooldowns and abilities by an extra 20 seconds over 6 seconds. It would make it interesting, but I still probably wouldn't go for it that much. It's just kind of there. So Radiant Spark seems to be the default one that everybody's picking up, or at least the videos that I've watched. It makes it look like the go-to ability. So basically causes a spark on the target that looks like it just deals initial damage, and then it applies a dot over 8 seconds, dealing a certain amount of X amount of damage over 8 seconds. But it also increases the damage your target takes by 10%. And each time you damage them with a direct spell or ability, I'm guessing this, doesn't count with Arcane Aura because it's not a direct spell. It's still technically an AoE cleave. But every time you hit them with a spell, it's going to add another 10% to that like damage taken debuff for the next 4 spells. So basically, you got the 10% initial buff on there, and by the time it's coming to the end of the ability, like you can hit somebody for, I'm guessing, about 40% extra like spell damage on that final ability, which seems like it'd be really good. It does seem like it'd kind of go to that core of Arcane Mage one shot, and it's on a short cooldown. It's only 30-second cooldown, so you could easily do this with Touch of the Magi every single time. And it'd be a nice little, just a nice damage buff. That's basically all it really is. Another cooldown for one-shots. Is obviously, for obvious reasons, seems really good. I could almost see it getting like a cooldown nerf. Like 30 seconds seems really short, to be honest, for that. But I guess most people would be pairing it with Presence of Mind, so I guess every other one would really only be that strong. But I don't know. We'll see. See how it goes. That's going to be the default damage one, but I also like this one, Mirrors of Torment. It reminds me of Frostjaw basically, and that's why I like it. Conjure 3 mirrors to torment the enemy for 20 seconds. So whenever the target casts a spell or uses an ability, this mirror inflicts an X amount of damage, and their movement speed or both their movement speed and casting speed are slowed by 15%. How long that debuff lasts for, I don't know. If it's for the full duration of the mirrors, as long as the mirrors are up, maybe that 15% cast and movement speed are just applied to them for the full time or whatnot. but at the very end, the final mirror, once the final, the third mirror explodes on them or they use the third ability, they're basically rooted in place and silenced for 4 seconds, which is exactly like Frostjaw. And it also deals a good amount of damage once that final mirror hits. So it's a really nice ability. I think overall in just damage output, it's perfectly fine. It probably does more damage output than Radiant Spark just by using it, but it is the longer cooldown. That's the only downside. It 1.5 cooldown, so you only really use it once in a blue moon. It's not going to be, as much part of your rotation as Radiant Spark will be with that short cooldown, but it's another nice control ability. So I could almost see myself playing with this one. I'm not really sure which one I go with at this point. It's still early on. I'll see how they play out, but I don't know. I really like this one, but the only thing that's really got me going for a Radiant Spark over this one is that short cooldown and just another basically one shot. So you got your choice here. This one still does damage, but you got your choice between having the burst ability or the control ability. So I guess that'll kind of come down to player preference. All right, so the other things we got here, clear casting has an additional stack. I was reading through this. So basically, your arcane missiles are like they used to be. You can have 3 stacks of arcane missiles when everything is said and done. When you get your fully leveled up and all your all your abilities or just little niche things through leveling, you can basically have 3 stacks of clear casting. It's really nice, not having this be limited to a PvP talent, just being baseline. That's going to be really fun for burst setups. Missiles is just always going to be a really hard-hitting ability. So really happy with seeing that. Your mastery, now it basically increased the arcane damage of all your spells and abilities, not just Arcane Blast and Arcane Barrage, which I honestly thought that was so dumb. Like I didn't even notice that, to be honest, in the first part of this expansion. I just assumed it increased all my arcane spells damage, not just Arcane Blast and Arcane Barrage for a while there, but I don't know. It was still kind of a trait or a stat that I didn't really go for, so I didn't notice it that much. I thought it was just mainly for the mana regen, which it mostly was, but wasn't something I played around with, so I didn't really care that much. But definitely like this. A little buff isn't going to be something I'm going to complain about. So Touch of the Magi. This is pretty huge, guys. Actually, I want to see if I can get the actual tool tip. Oh, there we go. So Touch the Magi, as you know, like right now, this is basically the current tooltip. Arcane Blast has a 10% chance to apply Touch the Magi, accumulating 15% of the damage you do for 8 seconds. And so it used to be an uncontrollable proc that you might get a little bit of extra damage out of. Now I really want to find that ability. Maybe I'm just blind here and missing it, but okay, through the power of Control F, we found it. So Touch the Magi. I'll just read the tooltip, fully through right now. Applies Touch of the Magi to your current target, accumulating 50% of the damage you deal to the target for 8 seconds, and then explodes for that amount of arcane damage to the target, and a reduced amount of splash damage, basically, to nearby enemies. Guys, this is pretty huge in my opinion. I know a lot of people were, complaining about the arcane power nerf to 3 minutes, but guys, this, it's understandable, because Touch of the Magi combined with arcane power is going to be really, it's going to be a ton of burst. This is basically a 50% damage buff that you get to do every 45 seconds, and it's better than Rune of Power. Even though it's casted, yeah, it's the casted debuff you put on the target, but it's non-dispellable for one, so you don't have to worry about your burst being dispelled. And number 2, forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, it's unlike Rune of Power where you have to stand in place to get the full buff from it. Honestly, guys, I'm just going to call this out right now. Touch the Magi, the 50% damage buff, it's going to get nerfed. If it doesn't, it's going to be really strong. I'm really hoping it doesn't, but my gut feeling right now is it's going to get nerfed down to 35 or 40% damage. Because That's basically what it is. It's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be a detonate, so you're not gonna be able to control it as much. But yeah, guys, this is like, I can't explain to you how excited I am about this ability. It's gonna be so fun. Like, it's another burst cooldown. It's gonna be adding to that, stacking of damage just through every little thing, and this is gonna be amplified by a ton. Like, even if you, let's say you throw it on the target and you're like, well, I don't want to wait a full 8 seconds because then the enemy team will have time to recover. Let's say you just apply it to the enemy, give it a few seconds to kind of wind down its clock, and really, like, let's say you have one missile stack in your presence of mind, just tunnel that into the buff when it's on its like last 4 seconds, and you're basically going to be doing that ton of damage over 4 seconds. And then at the very end of it, like before the enemy might have a chance to really figure out what's going on, it's going to basically detonate on them for a ton of damage. Instead of, let's say, at the start of your burst, you start at 8 seconds or whatever, you start bursting into them, you deal a good amount of damage, and then let's say they lock you off for the last 3 seconds. The enemy healer is going to have time to recover with that extra 3 seconds, just top them off to absorb the damage of the touch of the Magi, rather than having it be kind of in the middle of your burst. Which I know this sounds like kind of reverse logic or just dumb. Like, why would you apply a buff to a target and just let it just sit there? But I don't know, guys. People tend to react not as quickly to just all this damage coming out at once, unless you can consistently deal damage for that 8 seconds coming out. I could almost see that being a viable strat, but I'm so happy with this, guys. Touch the Magi, it's going to be a fun just cooldown ability. Sure, it has splash damage, but we've worked around abilities that just have default splash damage before, and I don't think it's the end of the world. Like, let's say you apply touch the Magi to the DPS in a 2v2 arena. He sees it, he goes back to his healer or whatever like that. He's basically sitting on top of his healer for the full 8 seconds doing nothing to you while you're just pummeling damage into them. It's like, sure, they'll recover, but the healer's definitely going to struggle getting back all that health because of all the damage you put out into them. But that's basically it. I'm happy with it. If you guys aren't, I don't know what to say. But we'll move on from that because I can tell I'm starting to rant on it. So another thing here, Arcane Barrage is going to change. Here it is right here. So level 52 Arcane, you get the, I guess we'll call it a bonus. I don't remember what they're called in Warlords Arena, but basically stuff you get while you're leveling up. Grants 2% of your maximum mana. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if it's going to be like the legendary pants from Legion, where it was 2% of your maximum mana for like every arcane charge you spend. So if you had 4 arcane charges, you basically be getting 8% back. Oh yeah, there it is right there. I was like, I'm sure I read it somewhere, but right here it says rank 3 Arcane Barrage grants you 2% of your maximum mana per arcane charge spent. So that's just going to be really like even more nice for mana regen on top of Enlightenment. It's basically going to let us, stay above that 70% mana threshold, pretty easily. Well, not easily, but definitely doable without rule of threes. It's going to add to our mana regen. It's going to make, getting that 8% damage buff or keeping it up there pretty consistent and really viable. So I really like that change. I love that mana regen aspect of it back in Legion when we had the legendary pants, and I'm really glad to see it back now. Arcane Explosion, rank 2, nothing special there, a little bit of damage buff. What else do we got to cover? I think we covered most of it other than Arcane Power. So Arcane Power, that's the big controversy. A lot of people don't see why they increased the cooldown of it to 3 minutes. Like I said, I feel like Touch of the Magi is going to make up for it, and I feel like if Arcane Power was on a 1.5-minute cooldown, it would have really ridiculous strong bursts every 1.5-minute. Like, Touch of the Magi combined with Arcane Power is just going to be really strong as is. That's the only reason I see them increasing the cooldown of it to 3 minutes. But hey, we did get a little bit out of it though. We got Arcane Power, increased duration by 5 seconds, so it'll be up to 15-second cooldown instead, or 15-second duration instead of 10. So that'll be pretty nice. You know, arcane power always felt like it was a really short duration, but it was a really short cooldown. So now that they increase the cooldown, it makes sense to increase the duration. I'm sure it's still going to be dispellable, which is just something that we've had to deal with for a while. But like I said, guys, it's not the worst thing in the world, simply because we're going to be getting the Covenant abilities, we're going to be getting that new Enlightenment talent, and we're going to be getting Touch the Magi. So I feel like damage output shouldn't really be as much of an issue, and if we want to line everything up for that huge, massive one-shot, we're still going to be able to do that, but it's not going to be every minute and a half. As long as Evocate is still, you know, minute and a half cooldown, I'm not really worried about it. You know, we can still, you know, do a decent amount of damage while conserving our mana. So that's pretty much all there is about that. Clear casting, I already covered this. We can basically hold on to 3 missile proc stacks at any time. Mana gem. Now this is going to be just, it's going to be really fun. Just another mana, you know, a mana management ability. It's going to be really nice for keeping above that 70% threshold. It's going to just make things a lot easier. It's going to be really fun to start using this ability, though. Just another thing to remember to conjure at the start of the arena, but you know, it's not going to be something that's going to be annoying to you that you have to do every single time. Or I guess you're not going to be complaining about having to conjure the mana gem. I feel like it's going to be really handy, and it's going to outweigh the slight negative there. So displacement, I don't remember if I've talked about it yet because I've been ranting on for so long, but basically, long story short, yes, it's gone, but I feel like alter time is going to help make up on the mage mobility, but it seems like mages are going for more of a almost warlock type build where we're not blinking all over the place, but we have the potential to do a lot of damage. I'm perfectly fine with this. So if displacement is gone, but we got the damage to back it up by just sticking in place, then that's perfectly fine, guys. Because honestly, I know everybody's complaining about this. Displacement was a really strong ability, gave mages a ton of mobility, but everybody always refers back to Arcane Mage kind of being at its, you know, funnest times back in Mystic Pandaria, back when we had 1 blink and blazing speed. We had 2 mobility abilities just to get away from people, but we had a ton of damage. So I know everybody's going to miss it. It's really going to be missed in arenas just for getting CC out there, and like I said, I'm not too worried about it. It's going to be one of those things where it'll suck, but you know, when it's gone, if we get stuff to make up for it, people are going to kind of forget about it a little bit, but Mage is basically going to be playable is what I'm saying, and we'll just kind of be going back to what I guess it used to be like, you know, less mobility and a little bit more one-shots. I don't know, we'll just have to give people time to kind of adapt to this, but I think it's going to be a fine, you know, the change is going to be fine. It's going to suck for a lot of people, but people will move on once they see what else they're getting in place of it. So our Presence of Mind, Arcane Blast can be cast additionally 1 time. I'm not sure if like our Presence of Mind right now is just, you know, pop it and you got 2 instant Arcane Blast from it. So I don't know what the deal with this is, if it's like 1 Arcane Blast baseline and this 1 additional time is bringing it back up to the 2 Arcane Blast, or what's going on there, but I don't know. That's just one thing I'm not too sure on, so we'll have to wait and see. Prismatic Barrier, still pretty much the same, except it's got a nerf version if you don't have all the ranks of it. If you're not leveled all the way up, it's only 5% wall for magic damage and the 10% reduced, you know, debuff time. Then once you rank it up, it pretty much goes back to what it is now. You get, you know, the full, is it 10%? Oh, 15% damage, magic damage taken, you know, reduction by 15%, and the duration of magical harmful effects on you is reduced by 25%. That's pretty much how it is now, so I guess you'll just have to level up to get the full benefits of it. Slow, got a little bit of a buff, you know, reduce the target's movement speed by additional 10% there. It's nice, but it's one of those things where I guess if we're not playing the kite mode, it'll be handy, but I guess if we're not using Barrage as often, if we're going with Ring or Double Nova, this will be a little bit nicer, but slow has never been supposed to be something that, slows the target down to just a snail crawl. It's just a little bit of a stall. It's a nice ability to have, but an additional 10% on the slow, that'll be handy. And we already covered Touch of the Magi. So, what else do we got here? Covered Amplification. You get out 2 additional missiles instead of 1 now. Covered Enlightenment. Oh, Mana Shield, that got a bit of a buff. So instead of draining 50% of your mana as damage comes in, it's only 35% of the damage is drained from your mana, which is kind of nice. I'm still not gonna see this used in PvP, I'm guessing, because right now, like on live, the amount drained is tripled, so it's like 150% of your mana is drained for every tick of damage you take. I'm still probably not going to see this played that much on live. It's either going to be Shimmer or can't think of the thing off the top of my head. Slipstream for the just casting your missiles while moving, and also channeling your evocation while running around. I always thought that was kind of funny, just channeling your evocation while you're running in circles like you're on fire because your character's like waving its hands in the air. But yeah, still don't see Mana Shield being that viable option unless it, like, the mana drain goes down to 35% in PvP situations. That'd be really strong, but I still really hate that playstyle. As strong as it was in BFA, it was just an annoying thing to play because you're pretty much spamming Mana Shield while the enemy team is just barreling into you. You're spamming Mana Shield to let your partner do all the work. I really don't like that. Just kind of a slow playstyle. Nether Tempest just it does the same thing. I'm pretty sure it just got a bit of a text rewrite on it, so just says deals reduced damage to secondary targets instead of saying deals an X amount of spell power damage to secondary targets. Pretty much nothing changed there. So this temporal shield, I mean, I don't know what to say, guys. We're arcane, we don't gotta worry about this, but it definitely raises some questions there. Obviously, we're arcane, so we don't gotta worry about it. We're happy days over here. We're just kind of laughing that arcane get this, and Fire and Frost are getting the shaft on this one. But I don't know, guys. What are you guys' opinions? I'm guessing most of you are gonna say it's a garbage change. I almost feel like if Arcane gets this only, Arcane's going to be the only fun mage spec, which obviously I'm fine with Arcane being fun, but you want the other specs to have something. That's the thing that I don't know what Fire and Frost are getting, if they're getting other stuff to kind of make up for this, but I don't know. I really don't. I'm going to have to wait and see what Blizzard says about this. Give it time. Like I said, we're early in the alpha, so nothing that's on the alpha right now is set in concrete. Stuff can still change, and this could easily be one of them. Maybe if enough people kind of speak out about this, or they really feel that it's a bad direction to go with mage, they might revert this. It could easily be changed, but like I said, it's just a waiting game right now. We're all waiting to see what happens with the classes. They might be just playing around with stuff like this, but like I said, worst case scenario, if the other mage specs lose it, Arcane still got it. We're still golden, boys. We don't have to worry about that too much. I don't know. This is the only thing that I'm really not sure on. Like everything else that Arcane Mage has lost, I can kind of see how it's made up for in different situations. Like we're losing out on Arcane power being a minute and a half cooldown, but we're gaining Touch of the Magi, which is a really strong DPS cooldown. We're losing displacement, but we're gaining back alter time, and that's going to help a ton with mobility and just another defensive. If we have temp shield and all that, it's going to make Arcane Mage it'll make it decent. It'll make it decently strong to the point where we can take some damage and not be worried about dying all the time. But I don't know what the other specs are going to do, to be honest. Frost has always been in kind of a weird place. the play style of it seems fun, but I honestly feel like it just needs a damage buff. Like, I know it has a ton of control, and that's probably why they make it, you know, tickle like a wet noodle in general, but it needs something. And fire, I really don't. I mean, at this point, fire had their time to shine, pretty much all expensive. So if they get a slight nerf or they're no longer the current meta, I wouldn't be sad to see that change, but it'll still kind of suck for them. But we'll have to wait and see what changes. The change is definitely, I'm not in favor of it, but sorry, keep on getting something in my throat here. I'm not sure about this one, guys. I'll have to wait and see. But like I said, we're focusing on the arcane. I've ranted on about this way too long by now, I can tell. But I don't know. As a one trick arcane, if you're on this boat, guys, we're not worried about anything, obviously. But you know, we still gotta care about the other mage specs a little bit here. So we'll see what changes. If nothing changes, then a lot of people are gonna be really sad. But I'll just stop the video right there. I'm ranting on pretty much nothing else to cover, but other than the fact, I guess, to wrap it all up, I'm really happy with the way Arcane Mage is looking right now. If it were to be released as is with all these, you know, changes that are going on, won't be the worst thing in the world. I could be perfectly happy with playing this, and I hope that some of you kind of feel the same way. Like I said, guys, expansions are always time for change. We're going to lose stuff while we're gaining stuff at the same time. So it's all about the balance, and I feel like we're at a good balancing point right now, and we can only see what we gain from moving forward and what max level brings us with different things. So pretty much that's my opinion, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, this is Spart out.